Welcome back. You're watching The Lineup. The West Bank is a complicated place, some thriving Palestinian cities within a volatile territory, a place where Israel and the Palestinian Authority often cooperate on security and where Hamas enjoys bastions of popular support. With Palestinian elections coming up, our senior defense correspondent Shai Ben-ari sat down with a former top general for his take on economics, terror, and policy.
Palestinian laborers walk toward a checkpoint on their way home to the West Bank after a long day's work in Israel. These men have highly valued legal work permits that enable them to find jobs in Israeli territory. Others are not so lucky. Thousands of Palestinians sneak into Israel illegally every day by exploiting gaps in the West Bank separation barrier. Most come looking for work, but not all.
The dangerous elements here are the different terrorist groups which exploit this phenomenon to insert terror cells into Israel to carry out attacks, for example in the Tel Aviv area, like the attack we had at the Sarona compound.
Shortly after we spoke to the officer, we noticed a Palestinian vehicle approaching this area, known as a crossing point for illegal workers. An IDF jeep soon scared it off. The Army Chief of Staff recently noted the importance of closing the gaps in the barrier. The IDF is currently in the process of doing so. The old fence that you see behind me here is quickly being replaced by this new wall. In fact, these concrete slabs were erected here just last month, and over the next few weeks, this barrier is set to be extended at the rate of about 2 kilometers per month. Retired Major General Eitan Dangot served for more than 4 years as the coordinator of government activities in the territories. In that position, he was the Israeli official responsible for civilian affairs in both the West Bank and Gaza. He believes Israel should be doing more to develop the Palestinian economy.
Israel needs to raise the number of work permit recipients as much as possible, as a matter of approved policy. In the past, I recommended expanding their fields of employment, and I still recommend so today.
It is a position widely held in the security establishment.
We need to choose the economic steps in Judea and Samaria that will develop the Palestinian economy beyond just having people go to work. Not just what Israel thinks is right, things that the Palestinians want as well. Supporting Palestinian infrastructure in Judea and Samaria, water, electricity, gas.
Last month, Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Liberman introduced what he described as a carrot-and-stick approach to the Palestinian population, based on rewards in those areas that remain peaceful and punishing communities that generate terror. Dangot agrees with the principle.
In my view, he has started his term with a very responsible approach, with good judgment. The responses are not rushed.
Liberman has also spoken of opening up alternative channels of communication with the Palestinians by meeting directly with social and business leaders and bypassing the leadership.
These meetings teach you a lot. In adopting this approach, Minister Liberman has, in my opinion, enabled himself to take better decisions, and also has enabled himself to listen, and not just make himself heard.
But while Liberman has labeled Mahmoud Abbas an obstacle to peace, Dangot does not agree that the Palestinian Authority president can be ignored.
Absolutely not. First of all, this approach does not make Abbas and the Palestinian Authority obsolete. The PA is the responsible entity. We see what's happening in our region. The instability in Syria, in Lebanon, in Jordan, the economic situation in Egypt. The Palestinian Authority belongs to the island of stability in the jungle, so to speak, that surrounds us in the Middle East.
While Dangot concedes that conditions may not be ripe for the establishment of a Palestinian state at the moment, he has not abandoned the idea of a two-state solution.
Economy equals security, security equals economy. That's the approach that is right today for Judea and Samaria, while we wait for the proper time to begin final status talks.
And Senior Defense Correspondent Shai Ben-ari with me now. Good evening, Shai.
Good evening.
So we heard a bit about the policies he suggests. We just heard him say economy equals security. Are there numbers to back that up?
Right. First of all, on the issue of illegal workers and legal workers who go into Israel, we're talking about 60,000 Palestinians who get these permits, these legal permits, to allow them to actually enter Israel on a daily basis if they want to seek work. Many actually choose to work in the Israeli settlements in the West Bank. That's very common in the Gush Etzion area. It works better than you would think. The numbers of illegal workers are a little less official, of course, by definition, but it's thought to range between 30 to 50,000 additional workers who are able to get into Israel one way or another. These workers tend to typically spend, say, a week in Israel instead of going back on a day-to-day basis to avoid that risk of being caught. Almost all of the terror attacks in the past 11 months, we're talking about still an ongoing terror wave, have been carried out by people without these legal permits. The salaries in Israel are typically 2 to 3 times higher than the same workers would get with a Palestinian employer in the West Bank.
So we've heard that pitch from him. Beyond the work permits, does he have any other sort of suggestions how to improve the Palestinian economy and therefore security? Right,
he does. Dangot emphasizes really that Israel must do more to create a sort of more constructive communication mechanism with Palestinian leaders, whether they be official in the PA or business leaders. He notes that in the past, designated industrial zones, for example, were earmarked for development by the Israeli government for joint business development projects. But today, many of these projects, these zones, sit empty because there was not enough communication in realizing what the Palestinian business interest was. He mentions the new city of Rawabi, that's north of Ramallah, as a very positive example, one that there could be more of. He also emphasizes that Israel has an interest in developing the Palestinian economy internally as well, not just in relation to cooperation with Israel, but helping them to develop their own high-tech industry, their own medicine, their own infrastructure, works and services, will generate the kind of conditions that are needed for the eventual establishment of a Palestinian state.
We've heard a lot of talks about diplomacy tonight. Maybe should be a little more talking about economy.
Maybe.
From what you say. Ben-ari, thanks very much for bringing us that story.